Hey everybody, Mr. Moonlight here, and I think this is going to be my final video on Alien 3. I was going to do another one on Charles Dutton's character, Dylan, but I don't think I'm going to go there. It's not necessary. He had a great performance, but I felt like the character was miscast. So I'm not going to go into that at the moment. A lot of people liked his performance, and that's fine. But yeah, it wasn't, again, it just, there are things that kind of fit into the story logic, into the logic of the world, and his performance just kind of seemed out of place. But he did do a good job in terms of, good acting. I just, there's a difference between being a bad actor and just being miscast. You can be a great actor and just, make the wrong choices for the role. But that's all I'll say about that. What I want to talk about today is, well, people have said, okay, Christopher, you don't like Alien 3. You've pointed out its objective flaws and the idea that it does not fit, it's not in keeping with the arc that was established in the first two movies. Okay, and you can listen to all that in my other videos. So I want to talk about what I would have done differently. Now, everybody's got their, retcon Alien 3 in terms of, Neil Blomkamp supposedly has his, although I did hear originally it was just going to be a standalone Alien movie, but then they kind of rewrote it to fit Ripley in and make it a retcon. But everyone thinks about, what they would have done. I think that the comic books do a pretty good job of establishing what kind of story they would have told, and I thought that was pretty good. It was kind of like a Terminator-esque. Instead of Terminators taking over the Earth, it's aliens, and the same kind of idea that there are people living on Earth that are surviving, hiding from the aliens, and it's kind of become this post-apocalyptic ruin. Not actually the choice I would have gone with, because to me it's another zombie apocalypse essentially after a while. The Terminator, I think, did it the only way you could, and that's Terminator. I'm going to be talking about how I would take Alien 3. I guess this is a hypothetical. I was only 15 at the time of Alien 3's creation. I was 16 when it came out. 16 or 17. I think I was 16. And so I'm going to be speaking as if I was a person that was called in and said, like, hey, we're in the middle of this production. We have these sets. We have these actors. Things are not going well. We need someone to rewrite this and make it something that the audiences are going to be satisfied with. We have this sequence where Ripley is ejected down onto this prison planet. We have these prisoner actors. So what do I do with that? Okay, so the first thing is, let's just get straight to the death of Newton Hicks, because essentially, aside from robbing the audience of a character arc that they've already invested themselves in, or character arcs, which is Newt Hicks and how they relate to Ripley, they just kind of stomped on that. I realized that by that time, Carrie Henn had already grown a bit, and so it wouldn't make logical sense to have them all wake up on this prison planet. But what you can do is this. So let me just go straight into the movie. So we have the same opening where there's shown to be a face hugger on board, and you hear the ship's alarms going off, but instead of for a fire, it's for a contaminant. So we show that this face hugger gets into Ripley's tube, and as a quarantine procedure, the ship ejects Ripley's tube, leaving Newt and Hicks behind. Probably what it also does is ejects Bishop's tube, with the logic that, okay, a ship's computer knows that, this person is contaminated, but they may have a chance. Ejecting the android with her as an assistant might be, give her a fighting chance. Either that, or maybe there's a contaminant with Bishop. It's quite possible. People have speculated that by being stabbed with the Queen's tail, he was somehow impregnated with some sort of spore that grows an egg in his intestines, which I thought was an interesting idea. So let's go with that. So they get ejected down on the prison planet, and Ripley wakes up, and instead of being told that Newton Hicks are dead, she goes, "Where are the others?" And they go, "We don't know. You're all we found, and you're android." Bishop is damaged still, so she starts trying to send out signals to the Sulaco and see, what happens. Well, at this point, Hicks has been woken up by the computer because of this contaminant, and he has to assess the situation. So he leaves Newt in hypersleep. There's no reason to wake her up. And we established that there is a communication going on between them. The Sulaco's not so far that they can only communicate by their version of text message. So they start communicating by radio, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to turn the ship around and come get you." And she says, "No, absolutely not. This is a planet full of prisoners. They're dangerous, and there's an alien down here." And then she finds out that she's pregnant with the alien queen, and she essentially says, "Take care of Newt, but keep the ship going towards Earth. We can't risk this, I don't want to risk her." So she stays in hypersleep. Hicks starts trying to investigate exactly what it is that happened. And he's in communication. He discovers that there's another ship on the way to get her. And she goes, "Okay, you've got to kill me." But Bishop and Clemens, the doctor, tell her, like, "Look, we can," I don't know if you can hear that in the background. I got a dog who's playing with his bone. "We can get this alien out of you without killing you." Bishop has the anatomical know-how. He studied the alien enough on LV-426. And, Clemens ethically can't let her die and sacrifice herself. And she says, like, no, I'm going to kill myself. I can't risk it. I can't risk, the alien getting out and the company getting a hold of the alien. They're like, well, we'll kill it. I hope that's not too loud in the background there. But essentially what happens is they essentially make a call and say, like, "Look, we're not going to let you die, and this thing is going to burst out of you. We're going to kill it." So we would have then this great operation scene that essentially it would resemble what happened in Prometheus. We would have this great surgery scene where essentially the xenomorph on the planet that burst out of the dog, not the ox. I like the dog better. Sorry, assembly cut people. I've already explained my feelings about the assembly cut too. Stop trying to act like it makes any difference in how bad the movie is. But essentially the xenomorph that's been running around senses that the queen is in danger. And so we have this scene where they're in the middle of the surgery and the xenomorph is trying to break in, and it's picking off prisoners as they are having the surgery. And of course, the queen gets loose. Ripley is hurt. She's going to be all right, but she's a bit disabled. And there is now two aliens running loose in the complex. One is a queen. Maybe she's not big enough yet to start laying eggs, but she's going to get there. So now they've got two aliens running around. One's a queen. They have no weapons. So kind of in the vein of John Carpenter's The Thing, they try and do the burnout. They try and kind of burn out the alien like they do. And this gives Clemens his redemption arc that I was talking about in the other stories. So he's so in the fire, a lot of people get hurt. There's kind of a rush into the hospital. He's the only doctor. Bishop can help, but he's still torn in half. These prisoners, he's working on them, and the alien starts attacking the hospital. Well, instead of running, he manages to get them all out, and he sacrifices himself to save the prisoners who are hurt. So that kind of gives him a redemption arc. So after that, again, we've got the people coming from the company, and at this point, I must admit, things get a bit hazy for me. I'm not quite sure how we would conclude this story. But what we have now is we have Ripley has something to fight for in knowing that Newt is still alive. We have more kind of drama and interest because there's Ripley is given a fighting chance. She's able to have an operation to have the alien taken out of her, which gives the audience some sort of hope that she can survive this. Part of the problem I have with Alien 3 is once you know that alien is inside her and she's just, Clemens is already dead, and she's just like, okay, like, we kill the alien and then we kill me. You really know that there's no way out of it for her at that point. And, you cease to care because, whatever. The alien's not going to kill her because the thing's inside of her. So it really kind of took away all suspense and knowing that she's already doomed, so why am I hanging around to see? I know how it's going to turn out. So but I thought it would have been really great to have two aliens running around. The idea that one is a young queen and maybe prisoners are starting to get cocooned up in preparation. The company's on its way, so that creates a time limit. Hicks is in communication, which kind of gives them a little bit of a there's still an air of tragedy that they've been torn apart and Ripley can't be with Newt. But at the same time, she's fighting for Newt. She has something to fight for, which is so important. Even in the original Alien, they understood at least she had, the cat to go after. She wasn't just running to get away the entire time. It added a little more interest. You always need something to fight for. In Alien 3, right as it stands, the only thing she's fighting for is... like what? The prisoners are terrible people, and I don't care how well developed you think they are. For the most part, they're still anonymous shaved head idiots who are criminals that did really horrible things, and maybe they can redeem themselves by her rallying to fight for what? Just Earth in general? Like, it's... yes, it's an entire world of people, but at the same time, it's like it's still out where they are. It's meaningless. There's no context that the audience has been given, like we've been given between Newt and Ripley and Hicks, where there's a rapport. It makes they're not anonymous. You care for them personally. You relate to them. So, but I don't know. I think that ultimately. Again, this lead pouring thing. Let's flip. This is also, to me, this is the dumbest way to kill an alien ever. You pour hot lead on it. That really should be enough. If flamethrowers work on these things, to at least some degree, then hot lead should do the trick. So, and then to have the alien have a temperature difference between cold water and hot lead cause it to explode. It's just silly. And can we talk for a second about the climactic music with the stupid sunrise on the planet? Like, that is so out of keeping with how the the visual themes of the Alien franchise have worked so far. That's like Star Trek. That's a Star Trek thing. Didn't they do that with Spock when he died in The Wrath of Khan and they shot his casket onto the planet and the sun rose over it? It's so goofy. Just really, I don't know. Just it's so much about this that was inappropriate for the franchise, but people seem to love. And this pretty much expresses how I feel. So I don't know, how would we conclude that story? Because obviously you could set up for more sequels. The company shows up. It would probably be something to the effect of like the outbreak is starting to get out of control. More prisoners have chest bursters coming out of them. There are aliens running around. Maybe a drop ship lands with just a few people on it, thinking they're just going to casually collect Ripley or something like that. Or maybe a bunch of drop ships land and soldiers come out and instantly get attacked by xenomorphs and the queen, and all hell's breaking loose. And in that chaos, Ripley and maybe Bishop and someone else grab a drop ship and fly back up into space. And, who knows? I don't know. But ultimately, I think even with all those kind of additions, you could scale that down and do a version that, these days with technology like face replacement, deep fake, getting voice actors in, that sort of thing, you could probably, some fan out there could probably do a fan edit at the very least where, they fake Hicks on the ship communicating with Ripley and, changing the voiceover so she asks where the rest, and they say, oh, you're the only one we found. Something like that. But I don't know. Disney, if you're listening, honestly, we can revamp this one. We can do another edition of it. If you can do an assembly cut, we can do a revamped edition of this. Maybe put it on your new streaming service and call it like Alien 3 Retcon. So anyway, this is my recording for Alien Day. I really think that this is the last one. I probably could go on and on about this movie, but there are other movies that I want to talk about, both movies that I think were it could have been a lot better, and really great movies where I think there are themes in there that are worth discussing. As far as Alien 3 goes, I really wanted to talk about this movie because of, I think it was the first in kind of a trend that started with, I actually want to say it started with Alan Moore. Now, if you're not familiar with who Alan Moore is a comic book writer. He wrote The Watchmen, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, V for Vendetta. But once upon a time, he was hired to write for Swamp Thing. And what happened was Swamp Thing was created by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson. And they had a run where Swamp Thing was essentially this guy who was a scientist, and he got these chemicals on him. And there was a fire. He caught fire with all the chemicals on him, and he jumped in the swamp, and it turned him into Swamp Thing. Well, Alan Moore came in, and the first thing he did was he had a big shootout where Swamp Thing died. And during Swamp Thing's autopsy, they realized that, no, this was not this scientist. The scientist died in the swamp. This is an elemental, a creature of the swamp that kind of absorbed this scientist's memories and started believing it was this scientist. So it was actually not, Swamp Thing was never human. So he redefined who Swamp Thing was. He retconned Swamp Thing's origin, and he told stories from the point of view of this elemental creature. And it was brilliant. It was really a neat thing. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. But people started getting this idea, hey, Alan Moore did it so beautifully, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to find a character and do brutal damage to them and then retcon them in some way and make the character my own. Characters or cats are taking down things in my office. There's a lot of animal noise today. Sorry about that. But here's the thing. Alan Moore did it really well, and we had never seen anything like it. And it was great. Pretty much all the retcons since, not so much, okay? And this has become a trend. Sometimes it's enjoyable, but most of the times it's really annoying, We got a retcon of Star Trek. I liked the first one. It was enjoyable. It kind of, the other two were fun, but I think 3's enough at this point. And it was pretty harmless because it was like they created an alternate timeline. But now you have this, Disney's taken over Star Wars, and they're just retconning everything and really not offering us anything better. There's this kind of ideas like we got newer technology, we got, edgier writers, blah, 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 and it's terrible. And the same thing, they tried it with Ghostbusters, and when we didn't like the Ghostbusters reboot, we all got told we were terrible people. There's J.K. Rowling is kind of, doing a bunch of retcons with their characters, and letting Fantastic Beasts tell us that Nagini the snake is actually a wizard or a witch. And just like all of this stuff, they take it and rework it so it changes the meaning of everything that we have come to know, and not for the better. And Alien 3 was, I think, one of the first times where it kind of didn't work out. Star Wars, that's definitely happening with. Recently, Captain Marvel retconned a bunch of stuff as being a prequel and telling us, that no, Nick Fury actually didn't lose his eye because he trusted the wrong people. He lost his eye from a cat. The Avengers isn't called the Avengers because Tony Stark said, hey, we'll avenge the Earth. It's called the Avengers because there was an Avenger air. Just all this stuff that we as an audience have come to learn about these characters and appreciate, and these people step in and say, you know what, we know you like all that, but we're going to actually give you something that's mediocre, and you're stupid for not liking it more than what you actually originally showed up for. That's wrong. That's a bad thing to do to your audience. We show up for things again and again because we've come to know them, we've come to love them. So to hijack their name and give us something else and tell us that we are stupid, or that we are being fanboys, or we're taking things too seriously, or all these different things that we're told about us for not accepting what they've presented is, essentially it's like smacking someone and saying, well, it's your fault that we smacked you. That might, I don't know if that's the right analogy, but essentially that's what it comes down to. You tell us that it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. And we're just being ridiculous for believing that it does. But ultimately, these stories are stories that we have come to love. We've come to appreciate the craftsmanship. We've come to appreciate, most importantly, the themes they present us. And, if you just take all of that, throw it out, give us something else, and tell us that, it's our fault for not liking it, not accepting the responsibility for the franchise or the story that you have, been handed the baton for, not taking responsibility for the fact that maybe you're not as good as you thought you were, believing that you had something better to offer when you really didn't have anything to offer at all. I'm seeing it happen again and again. And fans, and I'm not just talking about fans like, the dyed-in-the-wool, people who show up and buy all the merchandise fans, just talking about moviegoers in general. They feel it. And for the most part, after a while of being treated that way, we walk away. I've certainly walked away. I have no interest in another Aliens movie. I'm sorry, I don't. I absolutely love the Aliens franchise, and I would love to be proven wrong. I'd love for somebody to come along and say, got another Aliens movie, and this is the one that's going to change everything. And I think that's why a lot of people are still showing up, is they're going like, well, maybe this is the one that fixes it. Maybe this is the one that redeems everything. But it keeps not happening. We keep showing up and we keep getting more and more disappointed. I'm tired of spending money or getting in line just to be disappointed over and over again. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, shame on both of us. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not shame on both of us. Shame on you guys. It's time to move on. I would love to be able to stick around. I'd love to be able to see these franchises go on and be great, but they're not, and I'm not spending any more of my money. I'm not going to see Avengers Endgame. I've heard it's great, and it probably is, but I'll admit right now, I read all the spoilers. Sounds like it's a very satisfying ending, and it sounds like it is also setting up for the future disappointment of the franchise. I'm done with Star Wars. I don't need another Star Trek anything. Harry Potter was fun, but it is a kid's thing, and I'm not a kid, and there's a lot better stories out there. What else? There's just, I'm just done. and I'm ready for some new stuff. And I don't think I should feel bad about that. And if you want more of these franchises, I understand that too, because deep down inside, I do as well. But I'm not going to, it's like coming back to an old fling. It's just not going to be the same. And I'm not going to, I'm going to move along. I'll always enjoy Alien and Aliens. I'll always enjoy the old Star Wars, Star Trek. My wife and kids love watching the Harry Potter movies. The third one is actually pretty good. But I don't need to keep coming back to them. And if you do want to keep coming back to them, keep being vocal. Keep demanding better of these people. It is time to admit that they're being lazy. They're thinking more about the money and the merchandise, which I understand is what you need to do when you have big franchises like that. But good stories do sell. And if you tell a great story, if you tell something that is endearing and relatable and makes sense, is objectively good, then you will have something that will last longer and make you way more money. Because that's why these franchises are making you money to begin with, is because those people created original stuff that was objectively good. And if you guys maybe have some faith in some new creators and faith in some new ideas instead of trying to bleed these things to death, then you might have something that is an investment for the future. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Again, a little over impassioned. But thanks for listening, everyone. Please make sure to like my page, like my video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I will be back to talk about some of the Pixar movies, some of the other movies that I love, maybe talk a bit about some of the other franchises, and my dog's going to bark. Don't know if you can hear that. All right, happy Alien Day, everybody. Pop in your 4K or whatever you enjoy on Alien Day, and have a hot cup of coffee, and be excellent to one another.